Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and fortunate to have such a wonderful show today. We have a phenomenal guest. We have one of the preeminent global mobility leaders from South America on with us today, Patricia Tavares from Unilever. So excited to talk to her. So excited to share her story with you. She's inspirational, just a big thinker. Love the way that she networks. Love the ways that she uses, kind of some of the similar platforms that I use down in Brazil as well. And we're going to talk. She's also the host of Brazil Talks, which I highly encourage people to go check out. So we're gonna go talk to her here in a moment. But before we do, we're going to talk about the book club book of the month for the month of August. It is called Take Control of Your Job Search. It is by Lauren Herring, the CEO of Impact Group, and we're going to read this book this month. I know a lot of people are between jobs right now, so this book is so topical, so timely, and then we're going to get together and discuss it here on Love and Reload on August 31st. So go ahead, go buy this book if you're interested in discussing it with us. Lauren Herring has graciously said that she will actually give away free copies. I know a couple of people have already taken me up on this. So if you want a free copy of this book and you're willing to discuss it live on the show, August 31st, that's a Monday. Let me know. Hit me up in the DMs. Also, I want to thank our sponsor this week. Our sponsor this week is OnCue. For those of you who don't know what OnCue is, you got to check them out. They are a dynamic software and kind of a call center and appointment setting service for moving and relocation companies. They basically man the phone so you don't have to. And they're great service. They have an actual contest going on with cash prizes this week. It concludes Thursday evening, so go check it out. Let's see if we can get the actual, there we go. Enter to win $500 is first prize. Second prize is $250. Third prize is $150, I believe it is. And you can go to tinyurl.com/love500 and enter to win there. You just need a picture of your move. So it's a pretty cool program. Can't wait to see how that goes. So we're going to be talking about that all week long. And without further ado, I want to bring out our guest, Patricia Tavares. How are you, Patricia?
Hi, Ben. I'm fine. Thank you. It's really nice to be here with you. Really happy about it.
It's so good to have you here. You made such a far journey. First of all, I appreciate you traveling so far to see us here today. Where are you sitting today right now, Patricia?
So I am sitting in my hometown, which is called Curitiba, and it's around 400 kilometers south of São Paulo in Brazil.
Okay, so that's in like kind of southern Brazil.
Southern Brazil, yes.
Yeah.
It's actually the first state of the south of Brazil.
Okay. And so Right now in Brazil, it is winter, right? So in the southern hemisphere, it's currently winter. Northern hemisphere, it's summer. How cold does it get in southern Brazil? Does it get cold, or is it still kind of, hey, it's Brazil, it's not that cold?
It depends what you consider cold.
So
right?
I grew up in New York, and you have some experience with that, and we'll talk about that.
Okay. So no, it doesn't get cold.
Like freezing, snow, no school for a couple of days growing up. All right, not that.
No, nothing like that. It doesn't snow. When it gets really, really cold, it gets down to 5 degrees, 4 degrees in Curitiba, right where I am. But the difference is that we don't have heating in the houses. So when it's 5 degrees outside, it's 5 degrees inside also.
So what do y'all do? I mean, is it a bunch of fireplaces? What's going on?
Fireplace. I have fireplace in the living room, and I have air conditioning, heat and cold in the bedrooms in my house upstairs.
Okay.
So that's what we do. And then you have little portable heaters that you walk around and you take with you.
You take it with you like a lantern, like how people used to walk around with lanterns?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because sometimes it actually is colder inside than it is outside. So we have to watch out with that. Yeah. Today, we're in a very abnormal day, very non-typical of the winter, which is what's happening this year in the winter. So it actually is 21 Celsius degrees, which would be, I would say, 70s, high 70s. So it's actually in a winter, yeah. So it's actually very nice today. I can actually wear short sleeves.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so we got a whole lot of people checking in right now on LinkedIn, on Facebook. If you're watching this right now, go ahead, hit that heart, give us a like. Let Patricia know that we are watching and we're supporting her here. We got people checking in from all over the world. Let's go through here and kind of just do a little roll call. Leave a comment, give yourself a shout out, give Patricia a shout out. Simon Johns, hi Ben from the UK. All right, Simon Johns, first to it. Molly Feldman checking in from Jacksonville. Tim Quirk from Western New York. Victoria McCullough in Dallas. There she goes.
Hi, Victoria.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot. It's like legit hot down there. It's like 100 degrees
Yeah.
down there in Texas right now. Caroline, hello from San Antonio. Wonderful. Sandra Clary. This will be a great start to the Love and Reload week. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you.
And your biggest fan, Fernando.
Yay! Hi, Fit. How are you?
Yeah, Patricia is awesome and has a lot to share. Fernando is like, Ben, you got to meet Patricia. You got to talk to her. She's it. She is the key. She's the linchpin in this whole Brazil thing. And I'm like, wow, okay, I got to talk to her. And I was not disappointed. Diana Ramirez, hello from sunny New Jersey, looking into the session. Hi, Patricia. And
hi, Diana.
Hey, Diana, it's good to see you. All right.
Yeah, we actually had a little bit discussion on Fernando Fer because Ben said just everything that you told him about me. And I said, well, he said the same thing about you. So we're coming to the conclusion if you're crazy or we're the crazy ones.
Yeah. Are we pretty good people, or is Fernando just out of his mind? We don't know yet. Go ahead and vote in the comments, by the way. Is Fernando crazy or is Patricia amazing? All right. Janaina says, hello from Rio. Love and Rio. To this great and inspiring guest. So happy to see this connection's growing. Janaina, it was your leadership that helped us get here. So I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Lana.
She's amazing also.
Lana's great. Miriam, we got such a great community here in Global Mobility. Like, could you just touch on that for a moment? I mean, people respect you and the admiration and the affection that they have for you just when they talk about you, Patricia. Like, what is it about our industry and about your experience in particular that generates this kind of feeling?
I think there's one little thing that I always like to say, right? Global mobility is a community that is, let's say, reduced when you compare to an HR community, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're all experts on what we do. But for you to do it with love, you really have to be bitten by the bug, right? So I always say
bitten by the bug.
There's a GM bug that goes around and bites these professionals here and there. And that's how we really become passionate about what we do. Right. And I heard the other day from a teammate of ours that works in South Africa, actually, and she said the best way to define global mobility is you have to love global mobility to make it a career. If not, it's just a day job. Right. So I think that's what really makes us passionate about it, because I honestly love what I do. And I'm really happy and I'm fortunate to do what I love. Right. Because it's not everybody that gets to do it. So I think the way I talk about it, the way I like, and the way I want to make this community grow, because I think it's a legacy that I have to leave. I could say I'm almost at the end of my career, right? Because of my age, time to start thinking of retiring. So
I don't know. You're pretty active. You're pretty active. If you're at the end of your career, you're a lot of people go out and they kind of coast. Now you're like ramping up. I feel like, I don't know.
You might have to discuss that better then.
but you talk about the mobility bug though. Like when were you bitten by the mobility bug? At what point in your career did it turn from being a job to being a career for you?
So I think it actually bit me. I used to be head of operations in HSBC for HR. And one of the things that I had within my area was global mobility, right? So I think when I made the option of becoming head of global mobility and working only with global mobility and not with the rest of HR, that was when I was really bit. And I said, you know what? I only want to do this. I don't want to do the rest. I don't want to do benefits. I don't want to do hiring and terminations. I don't want to do payroll. That's enough for me. I want to do this part only. And that's when I really became, a big fan of global mobility. And I think that it really makes me grow because it's so dynamic. It's changing every day. There's always something different. Working with so many countries, like here in my current job, right? I work with 26 countries in Latin America.
Wow.
Right. So you have to know a lot about the 26 countries. You have to know how it's working, what's happening in there, how's the political situation. So all this is so dynamic and so different that you don't have time to stop and think about anything else. You just can only think about global mobility. So that's how I define myself.
And I want to get into the differences and the challenges in the region. But before we get off this topic, we're going to be having students actually who are in the International Business School in Dallas, Texas, who are
Mhm.
actually in the School of International Business, and they are going to be taking on a project with in groups of 7. And we're going to talk more about this. So I'm stealing a little bit of thunder here because we haven't really. So I'm just teasing this. But they're
Mhm.
all going to be focused on global mobility, right? And one of the things that we
Okay.
always say in global mobility is, you don't go to school for it, right? You just end up in it kind of by happenstance, right? But these kids are actually learning it in an academic environment. And so I wanted to ask you if you had an opportunity to address a classroom of, let's say, 50 young people who were flirting with global mobility as a career, what kind of advice or insight would you give those kids?
The first advice I would give is you can only work with global mobility if you really love it. Because if not, you get tired of the assignees, you start complaining of all their demands, you get upset when they don't say, "Way, thank you very much for everything you did." They just think it's normal. So you
Right.
really have to like doing it. And the second thing I would say is be always on your toes because you always have to be learning something. You always it's very dynamic. Our environment changes. And then when I mean our environment, I mean, for example, policies are always changing. They always have to be updated. We have to see what the different benefits are, what's changing from one region to the other. Does your company work with global benefits or do you have local benefits? So you're always trying to understand. Then you have well, like I just mentioned a little bit before, you have the political situation of the countries you work with. You have currency devaluation that you have to be aware of. So you're always learning something different. And I think that's the beauty of global mobility because you are always studying and learning something different. So you don't stop in your career.
So one of the things, so I love that. And one of the things that you just mentioned that I'm fascinated by because I don't have any exposure to it. And part of Love and Relo is me just learning and discovering on my own. But you mentioned currency devaluation. This is something that I don't necessarily really deal with in my region. How does that impact global mobility in South America and in LATAM?
So it's one of the major impacts, I would say. Currency devaluation and immigration are our biggest challenges. I'll start with immigration because it's the easiest one, right? The issues that we have is the processing time. So we have countries, for example, that may take up to 6 months to get you a visa, right? And I had an example to give you from 2 or 3 years ago, where we wanted to send somebody to Trinidad and Tobago to replace a maternity leave, which wasn't feasible because it takes 6 months to get the visa.
Oh, so
So
by
by
the
the
time
time
they get there, yeah,
the visa, the short term assignment was over,
right,
right?
right.
So you have to learn how to deal with this timing, and then you have to manage expectations of the assignee, of the business that's expecting you to do something, right? So how do you deal with that internally? And then coming to currency devaluation, unfortunately, LATAM is a region that is growing a lot, but we do go through currency fluctuations, right? So how do you pay the salary? What kind of calculations are you going to do? So the assignee said he was going to receive X amount of dollars, and he's not at the end of the day. Does the country allow you to have a split pay, right? Can you pay a hard currency in his home country or in a third country and pay just a little bit of amount of his salary in the country he's in so that he can live on a day-to-day basis? So all this has to be calculated, has to be aligned with the assignee. And then you also have to have internally, what are you going to do in relation to keeping the currency at a certain level, right? Are you going to give them a bonus or something, an update every 2 or 3 months for the amount that they lost? If you go to Argentina, for example, last year, right? Argentina had a maxi devaluation almost 60%. How can you say you're
Wow.
paying him the same amount in the end of the year that you were paying in the beginning? You have to have some kind of update on his salary.
So what do
So,
you
and
do in that situation, though, Patricia? That's that's a huge situation. So say you have a Brazilian who you send to Argentina. Argentina's currency goes down 60% from the beginning of their assignment to present, let's say, and are they calling you? Like, I mean, are they the ones that are prompting this
daily,
daily?
daily they call you.
They're like, "Where's
They
my
call you
money?"
daily because they want to understand what's happening, what's going to go on with me. What am I going to do? Am I going to continue living here with the same standards that I was promised, or will I be able to continue paying my apartment? It's all different kind of questions come up. So what we did in
So what
Argentina
do you do?
specifically,
Please.
yeah. So what we did in Argentina specifically was we put a process together for every 3 months. We started with every 3 months, and then we had to do it monthly because the devaluation was so high monthly that they would actually lose 10, 15, 20% in 1 month. So last month you got 100, this month you got 80. How do you live with that? Right. So we started updating their salary. We call it a notional split.
A
We give them the
notional split.
split. Yeah.
No.
So you give them the difference. Let's say that they were supposed to get 100 and they only got 80. At the end of the month on their payroll, we would give them the 20 to guarantee that they would still be earning the 100, because that's the promise and the commitment that we had with them, that they would be earning 100. Right. So we took on this responsibility. But this kind of calculation, Ben, is terrible because it's something that you have to do manually,
Right.
and per assignee. So it's not like something you put in the system and the system calculates it and then you just put it on payroll and have it processed. No.
And frequently too. I mean, you're talking about doing
Frequently, it was
monthly.
on a monthly basis. We went from June, I think it was. The first max evaluation was in March, right? So we paid them in May. We calculated during April and paid them in May. And then from June on, we started doing it monthly until November. So it was 6 months that every month we had to recalculate the whole salary, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, when the credit
crazy.
changes, does their cost of living change? Does their apartment stay at the same amount per month? Does the cost
So
of food
apartments
and
in
other
Argentina
items?
are being the apartments in Argentina are being updated every 3 months. Every 3 months, the rent raises. But we pay it for them, so that doesn't come out of their pocket, right? It's something that we have a process with our RMC, and we update the amount and they pay it. So it doesn't impact the assignee. But every 3 months they have a raise in their rent. So it's crazy.
Now, what if the reverse was true? What if you had an Argentinian going into Brazil and their home wages were fluctuating? I don't know if that even matters or not, but I guess let me ask you differently. I mean, what if the roles were reversed, and what if it was to the employee's benefit? I mean, is that ever a situation where employees can benefit from?
So my company specifically is very generous. I like to say it that way. If it's towards the benefit of the employee, or we don't do anything. He just stays as he is. So if he's going to get 100 and he could be getting 110, he will get the 110. And we don't take it out from him. Yeah, we don't take it away.
Well, that is nice.
But that's nice, isn't it?
That's wonderful. So it's all upside and no downside. It's just the chaos that involves currency devaluation. Let's see here. We got some other people checking in. This is great stuff. I mean, already I'm learning stuff. Usually the second half of the show is good, and the first half is just it's just fluff. But no, Patricia comes right out the gate. Roberta, hi. Hi, Pati, you rock. That's great. You really are like a Brazilian global mobility rock star. You know that? Like
I don't think so.
You really are. The way people talk about you, I feel like they have T-shirts and stuff. Like you're like the best. Dora, hi Ben and Patricia. Dora from Metropolitan in sunny California. Hey Dora, how's it going? Jamie, hi Ben and Patricia. Cheers from Boiling Hot, Mississippi.
Boiling hot. Wow.
Yep. Let's see here. We got some questions coming in here, and I want to address these. So we're going to kind of skip ahead here. Leave questions if you have comments. We're gonna read them all. We're going to get through all of them here. Drew says super duty of care there. He's commenting about how you take care of the employees, but you don't go after them if they're benefit.
We do, Drew. It's really one of our main concerns with the assignees is duty of care. So we really are concerned with them.
Let's see here. So Vanessa says, hi all. Vanessa from Sao Paulo. I am very excited to be here with you. Patricia is amazing and so wise. Look at that. All right. So we've got some comments here specific to, could the devaluation issue be solved by setting assignee salaries to US dollars instead of local currencies? I know I am being overly simplistic here. I love when the people already acknowledge that they don't know. I mean, I think that that's a good place to start from. That's what I always start from.
So I can actually answer this directly, Henry. Good question, because our long-term assignment is based in euros. So Unilever is a European country, so obviously we're based in euros, not in US dollars, right? And our program actually is called Euronet because their salaries is based in euros. So when I said 180, 60, whatever it was, I was saying, I didn't say it, but I meant 100 euros. So I have to guarantee that he will be paid 100 euros. And that's why we come in with that calculation of doing the split pay and of doing the notional bonus at the end of the month. So to guarantee that he will, yes, receive the 100 euros, which is the strong currency. Let's put it that way, right?
Now, is there an issue when they try to convert from euros to the local currency?
An issue on the daily base?
Yeah. So let me ask. Let me rephrase. Do you pay the salary in euros, or do you pay the Argentinian euro equivalent at that time?
So for countries that have the legislation that allow us to do a split pay, like Argentina, which is lucky, right? I can pay up to 70 or 80% of their salary in another country. I do have to pay at least 20% there because they need to have Argentinian pesos to live on the day-to-day, right? They have to go to the bakery to buy bread, and they will need the pesos for that, right?
Yes.
So there are countries that do allow us to do that. Countries like Brazil, for example, you're not allowed to split. We don't split. So we have to pay 100% in Brazilian reais here, and then we have to take care of the devaluation, which luckily is not going bad, so we're okay. And then we don't have to update them every month.
Yeah, Fernando was telling me a story of bringing currency into Brazil, and there was something like a tax or something of like 30 something percent to bring outside currency in. So
yeah, and if I pay, for example, need to send the money out, if I do a split pay here in Brazil, when I say it's not allowed within Unilever, not legislation, right? But if I do a split pay here, I pay 48% of taxes to send money abroad, which is not feasible, right?
Right.
So that's why we say in Unilever, we're not allowed to do a split pay.
Yep. Wonderful. Henri says, I'm like Ben Cross. I come from the moving industry, eager to learn. Yeah, we're just a couple of movers over here talking currency like we know something. This is great. This is great. Let's see here. Mabel says, Argentinian, always complicated. I don't know if she's talking about
Argentinian, that's why.
Yeah, is that why? Okay, very good.
She knows that.
Very good. Vanessa says, Patricia, considering the high volume of countries you handle, could you please share if you have a specific location responsible for expats payroll?
I'm not sure I understood the question, but let's see if I did. If I didn't, Vanessa, you let me know. We have a centralized team that sits in Durban that produces all of our payroll instructions, we call them, right? So we receive from our team in Durban an instruction that says you have to pay this amount of salary, this amount of COLA, this amount of this person has housing allowance to receive, this person has a one-time shot that has to receive. All the instructions and all the benefits come in that payroll instruction. That payroll instruction goes to the local team when there is local payment, and it is done and processed in the normal local payroll process. So each country is responsible, let's say, for the payment itself.
Great.
I don't know if I answered her question, but I hope I did.
I don't know either. Vanessa, let us know. Let us know if you answered the question or not. Let's see here. Katie says, such a great discussion. So many complexities. Argentina and Brazil alone could keep us going till tomorrow.
And we still haven't even gone into Mexico and Colombia, Katie.
Yeah, let's go into Mexico, because next to Brazil, I mean, Mexico is Mexico the second largest market in LATAM, if you can include Brazil into LATAM? Or
yes, I would say yes, because Argentina used to be a very big market, but it's now all locked down and everything since the beginning of last year. So it's not that much anymore. But Mexico, yes, is pretty big. For us, Mexico is considered a hub, and we have it together with the Caribbean. So it's Mexico and Caribbean, and that makes it pretty big. So okay. Brazil is the biggest, and it's one on its own. And then we have Mexico and Caribbean with the northern LATAM that we call it.
Do you handle Mexico as well?
Yep.
You do? What are some of the unique challenges in Mexico right now?
I think that one of the biggest challenges we've had, and I wouldn't say only now, I've always had this, is housing in Mexico. We have a big issue. I hope the Mexicans don't get offended with me, but we do have a big issue with finding landlords in Mexico that are non-drug dealers, should we put it that way? And why do we say that? Because the drug dealers are the people in Mexico that have the money. So they buy the nicest apartments and the biggest houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when we come to our compliance department, obviously we can't rent an apartment from a drug dealer. Right. So
are these known people? Like we know, okay, this guy's a drug dealer, this guy's a drug dealer.
When you talk to the DSPs in Mexico, they tell you this apartment, this building is owned by so-and-so, so we don't recommend, even though it has the nicest apartments, or this apartment specifically, or this house in the condominium. They let us know. And so we, for our DSP, for example, we already told them, no, don't even show, right? Because we're not going to allow them to rent it. So don't even
show us these beautiful homes owned by drug dealers.
Yeah. So what happens is that the famous internet that sometimes helps in these moments, it doesn't help at all, because they go online and they say, wow, I found this amazing apartment and I want this one. And we say, sorry, you can't have this one.
It's got like the Scarface mural over here, and it's all white marble and everything. Oh
yeah, so it's a difficult situation because it's upsetting for the assignee. He wants it, he liked it, he loved the apartment, but we have to go back and say no, right? So it's a complicated situation. But when you have good partners like we have, it's great because they already know what they can show and what they can't. So we don't even have to get into that discussion. But I would say that even from my previous company, when I was with HSBC, we also had this issue in Mexico, right? Or the security issues that we have there, right? So you can't live in an apartment if you're not above the 5th floor. You can't live. Or if the apartment doesn't have 24 hours, how do you call it? People that sit downstairs. Security, yeah, right. Security guards. So it's very important for you to have that kind of recommendation from the security department so that you can take care of your assignee. And then, Henry, once again, duty of care, right? You have to be aware of what's happening to them. So,
oh my gosh. And the whole 5th floor thing, like, so what is that, because somebody's scaling 4 floors, but they won't scale 5? I mean, is there like a Mexican drug dealer union that says, no, that's not safe, we're not going that high up?
So yeah, normally, I don't think we have a definition of floors like that. It comes from our security department, right? So it's a good question. I'll let you know later, but I will ask why 5th.
Why the 5th? Yeah, so it's an unlucky number in drug dealer circles. Jamie says the cartel is ruining so many beautiful tourist areas in Mexico. Puerto Vallarta and Cancun is getting worse. Jamie is an expert on international housing, by the way.
Okay, Jamie, good to know.
Yeah. Fernando says, regarding international moves, do you think the process got better comparing to 5 to 10 years ago? What advice do you give when searching for moving services in South America?
So, Fed, I think that, yes, definitely services have improved a lot in the last 5 or 10 years. And I would say that it's amazing how fast you guys have changed and how fast you guys have adapted. And luckily, I think that things are happening and you're adapting to new processes, but you're already thinking. So I really think that the international moving companies are being very innovative and creative and taking it along with them. So it makes our job easier, actually, because you're getting better services from international movers, which makes our job easier because then we don't have to manage so much expectations with the assignees. And I must say that this year, this 2020 that I don't know if I want to remember or forget for the rest of my life, made everybody, and that was something that's incredible because it made everybody rethink, how are you going to do business? And so many new things came along, so many new processes came along. Fernando explained lots of things he did on his LOVE+RELO presentation, right? And the good thing about it is that's things that are happening not only for the COVID period, but for everything, for later. So all these new changes that are coming on and that you guys are bringing on and we're taking for the future, right? My advice would be don't stop changing. Continue being dynamic. Continue looking for different opportunities and new ways of doing your job. Because I think that's where we all learn and we all get better at it.
I love that advice. I think you're a phenomenal example of that. I try to do that as well. It's nice to hear that the moving industry in South America is adapting and being innovative. I think the moving industry is one of those industries that's always been pegged as being kind of old school and very traditional and antiquated, perhaps. And so it's good to hear that you're finding some innovation and some change. Are there any things in particular, just as a mover, because I'm curious, is there anything that stands out to you that moving companies have been doing differently in the past year or two that might be more innovative? Just because maybe we could steal some ideas from Fernando,
I do think there's something that really called my attention. I naturally am a sustainable person. So I am always concerned with sustainability on what's happening and save the water here and watch out with what you're throwing out and everything. And that's how I am, right?
Yep.
And so one thing that used to really bother me was the boxes with the movers, right?
Sure.
One, what do you do with them once the boxes are empty? Do you just throw them out, right? Or can you recycle and use it again, or do a different way of thinking of
Right.
using it, right? So that's something that I know that NetMove did, but I also know that other companies did, right? So recycling the boxes and using them again. And then one thing that I would say 4 or 5 years ago we implemented, not in Unilever but in HSBC, was picking up of what's left over after unpacking. Don't just let the assignee throw things out on the normal garbage in his building.
Right.
Do something about it, picking up. So I think that for me is something that's really important personally and for the companies, because we also have sustainable goals that we have
Sure.
to comply with, right? So
course.
we need our partnership with you guys to make sure that we can deliver our goals, right? Which helps your goals also. So I think it's something like walking hand in hand.
And
right?
I love what you're talking about, because what you're talking about is process improvements and process innovations. And I think sometimes when we talk about innovation, we talk about, is there a new cool app out there, or is there a new piece of technology, and we're thinking digitization. But what you're talking about is a process innovation that leads to a more sustainable world and environment. And you're right, especially on international moves, because people in the US may not know this, but on international moves, there is no everything that is wrapped and packaged for an international move is designed to be disposable. Now, moving companies try to reuse that stuff as best they can nowadays, because and a lot of it's being driven by the sheer cost of cardboard now. Because of Amazon and e-commerce and everything like that, cardboard is getting so expensive that cost is driving that, in addition to wonderful companies like Unilever that are demanding that we get greener in our supply chain. So that's awesome. That's great. Wonderful example. We got a lot of questions coming in here. Want to go ahead and really quickly thank our sponsor, and then I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about Brazil Talks, as well as answer some of these questions right now. So let's take a real quick little break here and thank our sponsor. Our sponsor, On Cue, right now is hosting the Mover Summer Games. Just upload a photo to enter amazing prizes to be won, including $500 cash for first prize, $250 USD for second prize, and $150 for a third prize. And you get a chance to meet basketball legend, Hall of Famer, Dream Teamer Chris Mullin. You can go to the URL, tinyurl.com/love500. Go check that out right now. All you got to do is post a picture, enter to win, and you could win. And that contest concludes on Thursday, but we love giving away free stuff to our viewers here on Love and Real. So thanks to OnCue for that. Now, I want to talk real quick, Patricia, about Brazil Talks. So I want to take a moment to talk about this, because I love what you're doing down there. People are just eating it up. They're so excited about it. Can you tell people about Brazil Talks and what that's all about?
I can, definitely. So Brazil Talks is an amazing platform. I lead the process with Vanessa Romão, which works with me. We have a committee that works with us on it. It's all voluntary at the moment. We try to bring in global mobility subjects that are at the moment hot topics, right? So we've done several on virtual assignments. We talk about tax. We talk about movers. We're having one with movers in September specifically. So we always want to bring in what the hot topic is and what we can do. Why? Because like I said in the beginning, our global mobility community is a small community when you compare it to other ones, right? So we have to give them as much knowledge as we can. What we do on Brazil Talks is share knowledge on the corporate side and on the vendor side so that everybody can learn. And it's not something like it's just, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to learn how to deal with an assignee because I'm going to be corporate for the rest of my life. No, that's not the objective. The objective is teach everybody, share everything you have, right? It actually is my purpose in life at the moment. My purpose in life is share my knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Teach as much as you can, create as much as you can, help as much as you can. And I took that with me to Brazil Talks. So, and luckily I have a group of people that work with me and agree with that. So it makes it easier, right? And we started out on a crazy week in April. Let's do 5 webinars and, short half-hour webinars talking a little bit about each subject, and let's see what's going to happen. Yeah. And boom, we had 100 people on the first one. I was like, oh, and now what do we do? Now it's big. Now we have to go on, right?
There's that moment where you're like, hey, we're going to try this. And if it doesn't work, whatever. And then it works. And you're like, uh-oh, now what do I do, right?
Exactly. And now I'm like, and now how do I continue with this, right? How do I go ahead with this? Now that it's started, I can't stop it.
You feel like an obligation, right? Like you feel like you have to keep putting this out and serving the people, like you said, right?
Because you see, people are so anxious and they need it, and they're coming to me, and people are emailing me and saying, what's the next topic and how can I help? I want to do my part also. Yeah. So I think it's really, really good. And so now I have to take it along. There's no way I can stop now.
I 100% agree. Let's see if we can get this up there. Janet, do you think we can put up the URL for the people that are watching right now? Patricia, what is the Brazil Talks website?
It's BrazilTalks.com.
BrazilTalks.com. That's easy.
Brazil with Z, because Brazil in Portuguese is with an S.
Yeah.
But we call it Brazil with Z because it's Brazil Talks. So
Brazil Talks.
Yeah, and we have it on LinkedIn also. We have an Instagram. We have everything. We started very small. We didn't even have Thanks, Janet.
Thank you, Janet.
We didn't even have a LinkedIn site when we did that first week, and people were like, "Where can I find the recording?" And we were like, "Oh, we have to record it."
All of a sudden, people have all these expectations, and they're like, "Well, where is it? Can I find it after it's taped? How do I subscribe?"
Yeah, so it was really interesting. But the good thing about it is that we're 10 people working on it actually today, because I have a specialist from each area. So I have somebody from immigration, I have somebody from relocation, I have somebody from DSP services. So each one of them and then I have 4 corporates, so that we balance more or less what we want to know, right? Yeah. And that's how we try to bring the topics in. We try to bring them in, hearing what's going on in the market. So we had, for example, the last one that we had was on the ban for people that are in Brazil or Brazilians into Europe and into the US. So we brought immigration specialists from Europe and from the US to explain what exactly the impacts were. Right. And that's how we try to go. Virtual assignments. Everybody wants to talk about virtual assignments. We did 2 sessions on virtual assignments. Right. So we hear what the community wants. They suggest what they want to talk about. And then we go after specialists on that topic to make sure that we get the best out of it.
What do you think is unique about the approach that you're taking with Brazil Talks, and maybe where do you think there's opportunities in the the area of content right now? Because I think a lot of people are exploring different ways to produce content in global mobility. Obviously, I'm fascinated with it. I'd love to hear your take on where are the opportunities, where has it not been done right in the past, and maybe there's opportunities to improve, in your opinion.
I think, like I said, it has to be very dynamic and very fast, like our market is, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're planning to talk about virtual assignments, we can't plan something for 2 months. If we're going to talk about virtual assignment, let's talk about it next week, because that's how we have to get the ball rolling, right? So it has to be something that's fast. It has to be something that we hear the community. That's why we always ask at the end of the session, please fill out the satisfaction survey and give us what you want to talk about, right? So that we can get more into what they want and not what we think is necessary. So I think that's one of our secrets is listening to what they want to hear about.
Same with immigration, right? I mean, some new law may pass or some executive order may come out, and all of a sudden the immigration landscape changes materially, within a couple of days. And,
Mhm.
you have to be kind of quick and responsive to that. So,
Yeah. So we started as Brazil Talks, but now, and which means that we would be talking more about Brazil, but we're seeing also that just talking about Brazil is not enough because we're not Brazil mobility. We're global mobility, right? So we have to know
mhm,
what's happening in the other regions. So we're also expanding to other regions and other countries, right? Like I said, we spoke about the ban in Europe and the US, and the ban is not for Brazilians. It's for who is in Brazil in the country. So whatever nationality you have, if you're coming from Brazil, you're going to be going through quarantine and everything. So I think that that was something that was really important. Other subjects like let's hear our next session now, for example, is on upskilling the global mobility professional, right? And when I say the global mobility professional, it's not only on the corporates, it's for everybody. What kind of skill do you need to have? What's going to happen?
yeah,
What do you need to develop? You're going to have to listen to what the psychologist is going to tell us and then see how it fits in your personality and where you're missing, right?
yeah.
So I think that's also something that's important because it helps make the global mobility professional grow,
So,
right?
so let me ask you, if people are watching this right now and they're like, Patricia, that sounds amazing. I want to get involved. How do I get involved? What do you say to that?
Right. Reach out to me, patricia.tavares@braziltalks.com. Send me
Okay.
a note. Send me
Awesome.
a quick note there, and for sure I'll get back to you. I try to be pretty fast in my emails. So,
Yeah.
Mo,
You're super.
at the latest next day, I'll answer you, but I try to be pretty fast.
Yeah,
So,
you're always super responsive. So that brings me to my next thing, right? Because when Fernando, introduced us, and then we had this conversation, and I was just like, wow, I love this. This lady's amazing. I just really want to collaborate with you, and I love what you're doing down in Brazil, and you being so supportive of what we're doing on Love and Relo. And an opportunity came up with the IAM convention coming up
mhm,
in October, and I was given the opportunity by IAM to curate a panel in several regions, right? Similar to what we did with Love and Real Latam Week, similar to what you're talking about, Brazil Talks, but now let's look at other regions and how can we learn from other regions and how do we impact and influence each other, right? And so we are putting together a South American Latam focused panel of it's kind of a voice of the client kind of a thing. And Patricia, you have been gracious enough to lend your knowledge, your influence, and your perspective to this project. What are some of the things that you're excited about talking about on this panel discussion at IAM?
So I think it's really interesting because movers is not normally an audience that I would have, right? It's not something that I would even speak about, right? So
Right.
I think that what called my attention is the opportunity to learn a little bit more about moving. We know what happens. We know, like last year, we had several issues, and I learned what a forwarder was because I had never heard what a forwarder was, and now I know what it is and what they do.
All right. Right.
I think it was really great. It was a good opportunity to learn when you have to grab it, right, when it
Yeah.
comes by. So I think the fact of learning and talking about movers and two movers, I think is going to be really interesting. And then we also brought the suggestion, which I'm giving you feedback now also, is why not bring in RMCs, right? Because they work with the movers directly and they work with the corporates directly. So
Right.
let's make a link between what the RMC does for the movers and for the corporates, and let's bring them in. So I think that's really, really important for us. And Latin America is a complicated region for you to work. So you have to have good people on the panel. And I'm
Yeah.
sure we're going to get the good people on the panel.
Well, so far you've gotten a couple of commitments. Is there anybody that we can talk about that have committed to us at least now?
Sure, we can talk. I spoke to BGRS with Gustavo Perez. He's
Nice.
already committed to participate.
Nice.
And we also have Caio Leal from Cartus, which is also committed to participate. And
Wow.
so he's going to be with us also. And both of
Wow.
them are Latam, so both of them know the region inside out.
That's incredible. That's
Yeah.
so awesome. I'm so appreciative because I don't know either of these people personally. I've heard about them, but you've made these introductions on behalf of IM and myself, and you're
Mhm.
involved, and it's just I thank you so much for that, Patricia. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure and my honor to be able to be part of this. I love it.
Yeah, this is great. I'm excited about it. So if you're watching it right now, if you're watching this right now, just a little teaser here, and this is, I think, one of the first times we've mentioned it on Love and Reload. I think this is the first time we're doing a IAM Global Mobility series of panels with Global Mobility clients, right? So corporate clients and RMC clients, to Patricia's point earlier, and it's going to be about the region. We got one for Latin America. We got other ones that we're going to be talking about soon. And I'm excited. If you're interested in checking that out, go to IAM's website. And if you're a corporate member, someone like Patricia, who at Unilever, and you actually manage a global mobility program, reach out to me directly. And I've got a couple of free registrations for you as well. So
Wow, that's great.
yeah, it's like a
And I'll tell you
$600
why
value.
that's great. Because for us corporates, it's always hard for us to convince our bosses to pay for us to participate the registrations and events. So when you say it's free for corporates, we love it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
hey, we're trying.
And we go to everything we can.
and if there's any way, if anybody has any other feedback or any other ideas about this session, please let us know. And I think we'd love to incorporate. We'd love to incorporate it. We've got a few more questions here. Gosh, this is really great. Let's see here. We got some comments here. Lisa, sustainability, mobility is one of our favorite 2020 trends to watch at Crown. Let's keep the momentum going on this theme. A big thanks to Unilever, who led the way starting several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is nice. That's great.
Yeah.
Henri says cardboard in Europe is recycled through specific industries here. It usually doesn't cost you a dime, and you may occasionally make a buck from the buyer. Okay, that's nice. Good to know. Mariana Barros, a friend of the show, says, what are the biggest culture shocks the expats face in LATAM and Brazil? How do you deal with the aspect of expatriation, of the expatriation process?
Yeah, so Mari is amazing also. She's really, really good. And I would say that a shock that always happens is when you're talking of an intra-LATAM move, you say, oh, we're from the same region. I understand how everything works. No, you do not understand how everything works. Right?
Yeah,
I'll give you
especially Brazil to Argentina. I mean, even other, anyway, yes, go ahead, please.
Right. We're right next to our hermanos here, and it doesn't work like that, right? So even this coming from an intercultural trainer, right? She was the person that told me this. It wasn't Mari, but it was another intercultural training. So here in Brazil, very normal for you to come into a meeting room at 10 a.m., let's say. And then you come in with your little cup of coffee, because you have to have a cafezinho here in Brazil, right? So you come in with your little cup of coffee and you say, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? Was everything okay? And how was your daughter? If the person has a daughter or whatever, right? You have a little intro before you start the meeting.
Sure.
If you go to Argentina, they never come into the meeting at 10 because it's normal for them to be late. So they come in 5 after 10, 7 after 10 to start the meeting at 10 after 10 because it's their natural way of working.
Okay.
Right. So in the beginning, when I started working with Argentinians, I'm very strict on timing. So everything for me is on the dot. Right.
Okay.
And when I started working with them, it was like, why do I have to always wait for them? Why are they always late? And then I learned that it's their cultural way of working.
Does that mean that they skip? Does that mean that they skip the small talk though, because they're already late?
Oh, normally they come in and they say, hi, how are you? And then they start the meeting. Yeah, they skip the small talk. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. And then another thing, for example, when you work with the region, right? So in Brazil, normal working hours are either from 8 to 5 or 8 to 6. And you take 1 hour lunch or 1 hour and a half lunch at 12:30 around lunchtime, right? Okay. If you go to Mexico, right? And I suffered this when I went to Mexico the first time. I got into the office at 8 because I'm an early bird. I like working early, right? So I got into the office at 8. Nobody got into the office before 9:30. And I was like,
Wow.
what is happening? What time do these people work? It's like, what's
Yeah.
going on? So they get into the office around 9, 9:15, 9:30. They start working. And then you go out for lunch around 2. You actually stay 2 hours out for lunch. You come back at 3:30, 4. But then you work until 8 p.m. at night. Right. So you work the normal hours. It's just their timing that's different. And why do they do that, especially in Mexico City, right? In DF? Because of the traffic. If they try to get into the office at 8, they're going to get all the school buses and everybody taking kids to school and everything there at the same time. And they're not going to get in by 8. So what do? They send their kids on school buses at that time. And then they leave their houses later, which traffic is better and they can get to the offices later. Right. So with a shorter commute. So things that you have to learn when you're working with the different countries, but that I find fascinating. I really think that that's the best. And then when the expats come, if you have, for example, somebody coming from the US and you say that you tell the person from the US that they have to start working at 8, they don't like, because you in the US start working at 9, right?
Yeah.
But then normally, right? The normal hours, let's say 9 to 5. Right. But then they have to get used to working, because you have to adapt to the country you're living in. Right. So like they used to say before, the older people used to say, in Rome, live like the Romans.
Yeah. Don't
try to be different. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. No, I love that. So you've lived in how many countries? Let me ask a different way. How many countries have you done global mobility in?
The max that I've done now is 28, 29, yeah.
Wow.
Which is the whole region here, right? From Canada all the way down to Ushuaia.
And you've lived in how many countries?
In 5.
5. Wow.
5. Yeah.
So you're also you're very familiar with the expat experience yourself.
Yeah, I was an expat kid. Right.
Wow.
So I was brought up out of Brazil. I left Brazil when I was 4 months old, and then I came back to Brazil when I was 16.
Wow.
So yeah, I lived in Africa, I lived in Italy, then I lived in Uruguay, then I lived in Chile, then I lived in Brazil, and then as an adult already, as an expat in the US, and then I came back to Brazil again.
Wow. So what was that like coming back to Brazil after living in the US?
I would say that my biggest shock and the biggest thing that I miss until today, wasn't only when I left, was the security and the safety of that I faced in New York, New Jersey, which was, I lived in New York, and I worked in New York and lived in New Jersey. And when I came back to Brazil, I said, wow, it's not the same thing, right? I knew it when I left, because I knew it wasn't safe when I left, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then after living 3 years there, when I came back, it was hard, because I was used to crossing with the path from Manhattan over to New Jersey and get with my backpack on my back and walking 3 blocks at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
It was no issue. Sometimes here, depending in the city or depending the time you're in Brazil, and I hate having to admit this because I am Brazilian, but it is true, right? You can't even walk out on the streets with a backpack because it's dangerous, depending where you are. Right. So you really have to watch out. And I think that was the thing that I still miss the most.
Wow. Great stories here. We got a couple more comments. I want to try to get to everybody's questions. We got some good stuff here. Let's see here. Miriam says, what kind of services does Unilever provide to the assignees and their families to take care of their mental health? How important is that for you?
Miriam, that is very important. Very, very important. We have a plan that supports the assignees. If they have, within our medical departments, you can access and ask for any kind of mental health support if you need. We have the insurance, the international insurance plan that also offers them therapy or anything that they might need at the moment. So it is something that is always there available for them. All they have to do is say, we need it. And then we can offer the service. And like I said, part of duty of care, again, you have to be aware, you have to know what's happening. Like these cultural shocks, right? It might seem something that some people can take it easily and other people might have an issue working with it. So we even offer, when necessary, for assignees that are going to work and lead teams, some kind of intercultural training based on ways of working and not only on ways of living. right? So you learn to accept the 10 minutes of delay or to accept your new working hours, right? So that you don't get stressed out with your team right when you get in.
Yeah, and so cultural training. I want to ask a question about that, just out of my own personal curiosity here. So what types of intercultural training do you offer, and what are some of the things that are kind of important, with that? Do you offer it to everybody? Do you just offer it to the people that are managing teams over here, or kind of help me understand how you do that?
So I'll give you the Unilever position, then I'll give you the Patricia position, okay?
Okay, I love this. I already love this answer.
Okay, Unilever position. We have the intercultural training on websites, so you can go in. It's offered to everybody. You can take it, but it's not mandatory. It's optional. You can see if you want to do it or not.
Okay.
Right? It's there. What we do when we feel the need, for example, like I said, of this more specific ways of working, intercultural training, we offer it, but it is an exception. We don't give it to everybody. We offer it when we see it's necessary, and when the parents come to me and say, or to the person, right, the GM advisor, my child is having difficulties in adapting, or I have an adolescent that didn't want to leave their home country and now they're creating issues here. Can we work something out? We try to work something out tailor made for that family also. Okay.
Okay.
Patricia point of view, intercultural training should be mandatory. It is necessary.
Right.
It is part of the success of the assignment, right? So and that's what I think, and I defend that when they ask me, because even when you're talking, let's say something that's closer to you guys, a UK-US move, right? Oh no, we're used to it. We speak the language. We don't have any barriers and everything. It's not the same thing when you go as a tourist and when you go as a person that's going to live. So
Right.
you also have to understand the different ways of working, right? Instead of having a cup of coffee, you're going to have a cup of tea. Instead of having iced coffee in summer, you're still going to have a warm cup of tea,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So these kind of things you really have to understand and capture. And that's what intercultural training is going to give you. It's going to give you these little small nuances that is going to make a difference in the success of your assignment.
So I agree with you 100%. I think a lot of people watching right now agree 100%. But what is that disconnect? Because we see a lot of companies who make it optional, and because of that, they have relatively low adoption rates. Or to your point, they may go back after there's a problem, and then they try to fix it with some training that could have been prevented beforehand. So why do you think there's relatively low adoption and it's not mandated?
I really shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it out loud.
Yes.
Cost wise.
Cost, yeah. Yeah.
Nothing other than that. Right?
Well,
We're
that's probably
reviewing
true.
the policies. How can we make the policy a little bit cheaper? Well, maybe we can take out intercultural training because it's really not that necessary, right?
Right. Right.
So and that's how it starts. So and that's why I say Unilever wise that we give them everything we can, we offer, but it's not mandatory. Patricia wise should be mandatory because it is necessary.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that and being so candid, and that's actually one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is you're so candid, you're so open. People are just loving the passion for mobility is very apparent, the knowledge, the experience. Then he wants to know about a drink. All right, fine, Jamie, fine. What's your favorite drink, Patricia?
So if I'm in summer, I like a gin and tonic. But if it's in winter, I like a nice and good Johnny Walker's.
Yes, a little scotch.
Yes.
All right, a scotch lady. I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Simon Johns is a gin and tonic drinker, but I've never met this man, but I know what he drinks. This is love and relo for you. But I had a question though. You're so open with with yourself. You're so open. Brazil talks, and just right now being candid and talking about the inner workings of compensation and just sharing so much. It's so valuable. We appreciate it so much. I struggle because there's other people out there that have a lot of knowledge, but you have the courage to share it, and I applaud you for that. And I'd like to know what gives you that courage. How do you find that? Because there's so many more people I would love to have on to share so openly, and it's a challenge. It's a struggle. Is there something that you do to those people?
I think at a certain point that I am in my career, if I don't know what I'm going to be talking about, I'd rather not go. right? So I have to be sure, I have to know, for example, if I'm sharing something that Unilever is doing and I'm talking in Unilever's name, I have to know up to where I can share and up to
Mhm.
what I can go, right? So if you ask me numbers, if you ask me costs, if you ask me these kind of things, I'm most likely not going to share because I know it's something that's internal, right?
Mhm.
But if I'm sharing a process, like for example, the Argentinian update, right? If I'm sharing a process, I'm sharing a process that is not unique to Unilever because it's something that we developed. But I'm sure that there are other tons of companies out there that are doing the same thing
Sure.
because everybody's going through the same process, right? So I think it's something that can help the global mobility professional grow. And like I told you, it's my purpose in life. I have to share my knowledge and let people know because I suffered so much to learn. So why do we have to see other people suffer? Try to share with them and try to make people learn with your knowledge so that they don't have to take so long to learn, right? I
Yeah, and
think
I
that
think
and
well, I
and
think
and, and I'll tell you something also. I did. I'll be fast here because I know we don't have much time. But when I was still with HSBC, we went through when I became a senior manager. We went through a training, as a senior manager, and to understand how you dealt with your teams and how you were as a professional and everything. And it came out to me very interestingly that I was assertive, a very assertive person. And it came out as a very negative problem and it came out as a very positive issue. And I looked at the psychologist. I said, I'm sorry. As an assertive person, you have to tell me a little bit more. Because, is it good or is it bad to be assertive? Right?
right,
Because
right.
the answer didn't come very straight. So I told her, I need to understand. Do I have to be less assertive or do I have to be more assertive? Right. So I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things. I'm a very pragmatic and straightforward person. And that's where my assertiveness comes from. Right. And that's the way I am.
I
Obviously,
love it.
you know what you can say and how you can say it and to who you can say it and the time to say it. I think
Well,
that's one of the best things also.
and I appreciate you saying it to us today.
Yeah.
Is there a final thought that you'd like to leave people with, Patricia, here today?
I think I'd like to leave the thought that I shared in the beginning, which is from one of our teammates from Durban, which is global mobility you love to become a career. If you don't love it, it's just a day job. And to do things passionately, independent of being global mobility or anything else, you really have to love what you do. So don't insist on working on something that's really not your passion because you're just going to work and not get anything out of it. So love what you do so you can talk about it with a smile in your eyes.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real
Thank you
honor.
for the invite, Ben. It was great. I had a few questions that I wanted to ask you and I didn't have time because you made me talk so much.
Well, that's my job is to make you talk so much. I had a few questions more I wanted to ask you. Well, we have to do this again, I think. Maybe we do a Brazil talks or we'll do this at IM or something again,
Hey, I like the idea. We could do a live on Brazil Talks. How about
We
it?
should. We should definitely do that.
Okay.
This has been fantastic. And thank you to everybody who chimed in with all the wonderful questions and comments. We had a ton of people watching live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube. Please go ahead and subscribe and follow on Facebook and YouTube. That's fantastic. And then also, this week we got some phenomenal guests. 4 o'clock tomorrow on Tuesday, we've got Olivia Bakrami from Prime Communications, CEO over there, going to talk to us about winning proposals and how to win business in relocation and present yourself. She's a corporate communications expert. We have Mark Picacci over at Hilton, who runs their global program here in the U.S. And so he's going to talk about global transformation and getting buy-in across continents and going from a fragmented to a centralized type of a program. We got Amy Grimm Whitson from Corporate Relocation International, as well as Chuck White, the president of IM, on Friday. So please go ahead and tune in. This is a phenomenal week, and you know what? We couldn't have asked for a better first guest. So thank you again, Patricia.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone, for the kind words. And I'm here if you need me. Just ping me.